Good evening, Fair Oaks Ranch. Welcome to the 2021 Fair Oaks Ranch City Council election Meet the Candidates, Part 2, the July version. We are here. I'm Becky Hutchison from the FORHA Board of Directors, and I'm here with Teal Harris, also on the board, and Judy Sarate, who will be timekeeping. I will moderate for the candidates who we have tonight. As you may know, we have 3 candidates applying for the position of place 3 on the Fair Oaks Ranch City Council. Those are Rusty Armstrong, Michelle Bliss, and Stephen May. Rusty Armstrong was unable to join us this evening, but I do have some comments from him that I will read here shortly. For the process tonight, each candidate will be provided with 2 minutes of an introduction, and then we will have several questions that have been formulated from interest in the community. After we go through those questions, if we have time before the end of the session, we will ask for questions through the chat feature on the Zoom, which is located at the bottom of your screen that has the word chat on it. If you have any questions about that, you could submit them at the chat if you were able to do that. Otherwise, if you would like to text into FORHA, that number is, Judy, do we have a text number?
You can use mine.
Okay.
It's 210-294-0362.
Very good. We will begin at this point. I will now read the statement from Rusty Armstrong. He was very, very sad that he was unable to join us due to conflicts with his personal schedule. He would like to introduce himself as a candidate for City Council, and in his voice. I'm a former Marine and God-loving native Texan who loves to serve. I'm seeking this council seat because I think I have an obligation to serve the community I love. Previously, I served in the Marine Corps and also served on the council of a small city. I thank all who have served, currently serve, and seek to serve, including my fellow candidates here today. Let me say I will not take contributions, nor will I spend money on my campaign. You will not see a sign for me. Historically, this tactic probably does not work, but how can I run on less spending and spend money to get elected? I've been in Fair Oaks Ranch for over 10 years, and some of my family have been here longer. I have degrees from UNC Charlotte and Texas State University. I currently work as a program manager for an international corporate wellness rehabilitation performance company. I am also a lecturer at 2 local universities. I'm concerned with many issues within the city. Some of those are not the hot topics of the day, but nonetheless are concerns of mine and my fellow citizens. Speeding, spending, poor road resurfacing, and odors from the treatment plant. These are the items that would be priorities for me. This is not an all-inclusive list, but a starter. As a side note, you are probably lucky that I could not attend tonight, as I currently have a terrible beard that has grown out from working at home these many months, that my wife hates and is fair game to talk about. You also may see me walking or running on most days. On to the concerns. Speeding, a growing concern. This is an issue that must be addressed by the city leadership because it is directly related to safety. Leadership must sit down the police department and find out if enforcement is happening, if not why, and what changes needed to make it happen. Are resources not there? Is signage sufficient? What they need. Then an answer or answers can be found and a solution. Spending. As stated earlier, I promised to not take or spend money in this campaign. Novel idea. An attitude I look to take into the council chamber with less spending. Street surfacing. My street was resurfaced not too long ago. From day one, it was terrible. As the heat of summer approaches again, we are already seeing melted areas are made just by turning the tire. The sticky mess stays on your tire into your driveway and garage. I'm sure this is not the design, and I'm sure we paid too much, as anything is too much for something that fails. I am not a resurfacing expert, and maybe this is normal, but it is not acceptable. And I will not even begin on the gravel mess they resurface with as well. Drainage or lack of drainage. I realize the recent rainfall accumulation was not ordinary. However, even with normal amounts, there are some drainage concerns that I am aware of just from walking around the city. There is an area on the parkway that when walking drives you into the yard or on the other side of the street. I am sure the homeowner is tired of the accumulation. I am sure there are more locations where drainage can be addressed. In closing, I wanted to draw attention to those items and to invite comments. To all the candidates, I honestly wish you well in the election, but I'm rooting for trustee Armstrong. If done for the right reasons, service to your fellow citizens is a noble endeavor.
So I think we need to give all the candidates
3 minutes for their opening remarks.
That's, have a closing.
He won't have a closing.
Oh, okay.
So it's fine, I think.
Thank you very much, Becky.
Okay. So with that, I will move to Michelle Bliss. Michelle, would you like to provide your statement?
Sure. First of all, thanks to Pharaoh and you ladies for putting this on tonight. I appreciate that. Thanks to Stephen and my fellow candidates for attending. I'm Michelle Bliss. I'm running for the City Council Place 3. I'm a 6-year resident of Fair Oaks Ranch. My husband and I moved here for the schools and the beauty of the area. I'm currently the director of e-commerce at a Texas-owned company called Kendra Scott. I've been married to my husband Dave for 25 short years, and we have twin 19-year-old sons. My son Kurt is at the Air Force Academy, and my son Jonathan is in upstate New York playing lacrosse. I've been in Fair Oaks for about 6 years, and since I've been here, I've served on my HOA board, and I've also served on the city's communication committee. And prior to moving to Fair Oaks Ranch, we lived in a town called Bee Cave, Texas, which was in between Dripping Springs and Lakeway. There I served on both the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council, in several of those years as chairman of Planning and Zoning. It is because of that experience and my passion for this community that I decided to run for this open position. I believe that that background will enable me to be immediately effective on the council. Some of the things I want to work on are issues with infrastructure, safety, and managing our growth by adhering to our Unified Development Code. I recently was actually able to tour the water and wastewater facilities and believe that we have some quick wins that could be addressed, as well as some long-term issues that we're going to have to be addressed soon. The reason I'm running is because of my past experience, my passion for serving my community, and quite frankly, my recent empty nester status gives me a little more time on my hands. In closing, I'm very excited about the potential to serve Fair Oaks Ranch, and I look forward to hopefully bringing a little bit more bliss to Fair Oaks. You can find out more about me if you have a Facebook page by searching Michelle Bliss for Fair Oaks. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Stephen, you'll come up on mute.
Okay, hey, thank you. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
I'm Stephen May. I live on the Parkway by Scintilla and Mellow Ridge on the way down to Ralph Fair Road. I'd like to thank Pharaoh for once again hosting a Meet the Candidates. It's always great. I'm glad that we have a chance to provide information on our positions to the citizens of Fair Oaks Ranch. My wife and I have lived here for 10 years. We enjoy living here. We enjoyed it so much that in 2014, we brought Leslie's mom to the ranch where she's met many friends, as we have as well. I've been on my restrictions committee since 2011, a little over 9 years. I have an MBA from ETSA, class of 94, concentrating in finance. We're also veterans of the Air Force, both of us serving 21 years. I completed my service as a Chief Master Sergeant. My wife is a Senior Master Sergeant. My work within the Air Force and as a contractor after my retirement centered around network cybersecurity as an engineer and an architect. My last hurrah before I retired for good was helping to engineer the network for the new military Defense Health Agency, which is basically for all the Air Force or the military medics across all the branches. We're members of the country club. We play golf very frequently. We're also members of Cornerstone Church. We enjoy working around the house and taking trips to golf and ski with our daughter. I decided to run because I wanted to lead the effort to support our citizens. I believe our city should be more open in its communication to the citizens. And we should have a city that's transparent in that communication. I want to prioritize and attack those things that affect our citizens today, such as wastewater treatment plant and capacity issues that it has that should be a priority. Taking years to fund a solution while spending $300,000 a year on trucking sludge all negatively impacts our citizens. That's something that we should not live with. So I would appreciate your vote. Vote for May.com.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Before we get started with the questions, do either of you have any questions at all about the process tonight?
Not I.
All right, great. If you do want to speak after the candidate has spoken, so you'll speak and then the next candidate will speak, and then if you want an opportunity to respond or have another say on the question, please let me know. And if you aren't able to hear the question, please ask me to repeat it. All right, here we go. So this is for Michelle first. Please describe what motivated you to run for city council. Include those specific qualifications you bring to the seat if elected.
Sorry, that famous mute button. So I have decided to run for city council because of my past experience on the city council in Bee Cave and also in the Planning and Zoning Commission. I feel like that gives me you know, a tad of a leg up as far as really understanding how city government is run. I also am running, as I mentioned earlier, because of my recent empty nester status. The city that I've served in before went through similar growth to Fair Oaks Ranch. And it's just kind of a passion of mine to help and serve the committee. I believe, again, that will make me immediately effective on the council, and I want to work on some of our immediate issues, such as the infrastructure and the safety and managing our growth by adhering to the Unified Development Code.
Thank you very much. Stephen, the same question. I'll read it again. Describe what motivated you to run for city council and include those specific qualifications you bring to the seat if elected.
Well, that's a good question. So what motivated me was what I see happening in the city right now. Things on the city council where the city council is making decisions, but yet the citizens aren't able to effectively come in and communicate. Plus, where the city council is getting a contractor that is going to do what the city council wants, but not necessarily what the citizens want, such as the elevated storage tank. And then open communication. Why do we have so many public information access requests that have to go to the Texas, Attorney General? To me, that's nonsensical. We ought to provide that kind of information back to our citizens. So I guess one of the things from being in the military is I'm used to prioritizing what the issues are and then attacking those issues. Wastewater treatment plants, another example. 2015, you get an odor nuisance violation, and it takes you to 2021 to finally put money against that. That part is insane. So, from a tactical standpoint, what I bring to the table is to be able to prioritize, program manage, and then effectively decide and come up with a solution that affects the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Next question. What are the 3 biggest issues facing our city at this time, and what will you do to address them if elected? Stephen?
Well, so we just already talked about the wastewater treatment plant. Again, if you've ever lived kind of on Scintilla, Mellow Winds, Nolahasi on the northern part of that by the treatment plant, you know that is a solution that should have come up a long time ago. If you don't live too close to it, you're in a neighborhood that's far away, it doesn't bother you because it's not a problem. For me, as living around the area and seeing people and even playing golf on the golf course, there are days where I will not play 2 holes on the golf course because they're right there by the treatment plant. Plus, if you can imagine having a semi, having to come down a narrow lane in between 2 houses to be able to pull the sludge out and then drive back, that's another problem. So prioritizing wastewater treatment plant, not coming up with things like the stormwater utility fee, where we're going to tax our citizens more, but we're going to call it a fee, where this should be handled under the general purpose fund, not attacking more fees to our citizens. And then another thing is property taxes. They keep going up. We've got a lot of citizens in our area that are over 65. We have a lot that are disabled, not military disabled because they get a whole different exemption, but disabled. And those people need their property taxes frozen in place, and the city needs to figure out how to come up with less than that shortfall to spend. And there's plenty of room for that. Those are my three.
Thank you, Stephen. Michelle, the same question. I'll reread it. What are the three biggest issues facing our city at this time, and what will you do to address them if elected?
Sure. So some of the biggest issues that I've seen, and most of this I've learned as I've been knocking on doors and talking to people, 500 or 600 homes now, are infrastructure. Stephen just said it. We don't necessarily disagree there that we have some critical issues in our water and wastewater facilities that are getting upwards of 40 years old, and solving how to get rid of that sludge. I think the number I heard was $350K a year, and hauling it off in dumpsters is definitely not a solution that for a city of our size. The second thing that I would want to do is to ensure that our safety is maintained to the standards that we're used to in Fair Oaks. As many of you know, we were ranked the 3rd safest city in Texas, and I want to work towards keeping us one of the safest cities in Texas. And the next thing that we need to do is we need to manage our growth and keep Fair Oaks the community that we all are here and have grown to love. And we have some tools to do that with. We have our future land use map and our unified development code, as long as our charter and our comprehensive plan that can help guide us towards managing that growth.
Thank you very much. Next question, we'll go to Michelle first. Budget has been a hot topic across the city over the last few years. What areas have you identified in the Fair Oaks budget where we can save money without sacrificing services or amenities?
Sure. So I haven't identified a particular area, but I did meet with Sarah this past week and went over all things budget. One thing I'll say is that we have a solid set of reserves in our city, which is something that actually Standard & Poor's recommends cities do, is carry a set of reserves. But I'm going to actually speak to kind of how I do budgeting, not just for the city, but in my paying job during the day. I believe that the budgeting process isn't something that you visit once a year. You need to visit it all the time and keep it top of mind. I was able recently to renegotiate a contract at my real job that saved my company $1.7 million. And it was as simple as, some services that we were using or that we had signed up for that we weren't using. So I believe that there's always ways to trim the fat from the budget.
Thank you, Michelle. Stephen, the same question. I'll reread it. Budget has been a hot topic across the city over the last few years. What areas have you identified in the Fair Oaks budget where we can save money without sacrificing services or amenities?
Well, so one of it, and I'll get back, and I hate to keep beating on the same animal, but the wastewater treatment plant. An easy solution to the odor issue from years ago would have been a dewatering volute solution, which actually has a return on investment that would actually, when you cancel out the $350,000 that you're paying to haul off sludge, of which out of that whole semi, 90% of it is water. So you're actually not hauling off sludge, you're hauling off water for $350K. So a crazy thing that the city is allowed to happen, where you can actually dewater the sludge, put it into cakes, put it into a trash can, haul it off. Much simpler, pays yourself back in about 3 to 4 years, according to the city stuff. So that would be something that you would be able to get a return on investment by putting some money in, but then it's going to save you money in the long term. City Hall also needs to be upgraded. But does everybody need a full-size desk inside the building? We kind of teamed up City Hall and the Civic Center, and we said we were taking money from sales tax fees and all that, but either way, you're spending money. So instead of spending it on Civic Center, you could make the job more safer and better within the City Hall and the police building, because there are safety deficiencies within the brand new police building that need to be addressed. So while that's not necessarily saving you money in the beginning, but it does in the end. Also from the elevated storage tank area that's now been, okay, sorry, thank you.
Thank you. Next question is for Michelle. In the February 2021 snowstorm, our residents were impacted by utility service interruptions, the severity of which appeared to be based on provider differences across our various neighborhoods. If elected, how would you propose we mitigate the risk of such serious impacts to our community in the future?
Well, one of the things I think we need to do, and this came from my tour of the facilities, then I actually heard of staff having to literally be out with blowtorches, keeping the pipes thawed. And that's not a viable solution. And as we all know, a lot of them had to sleep at City Hall, which was also amazing. As a side note, this community came together and fed them all, which I thought was wonderful. But we need to be better prepared for that, whether it be keeping the pipes from freezing, keeping the generators running on propane. I don't know if the answer is that we need bigger generators, but there was also a problem with getting propane. And as we know, this was a once in a lifetime storm. At least I hope it was a once in a lifetime storm. It was for me living in Texas, but I think we need to do some post-mortem on that and make sure that we don't find ourselves in that same situation.
Thank you, Michelle. Stephen, same question. In the February 2021 snowstorm, our residents were impacted by utility service interruptions, the severity of which appeared to be based on provider differences across our various neighborhoods. If elected, how would you propose we mitigate the risk of such serious impacts to our community in the future?
Okay, so, you know, I also went on the tour of the water and wastewater plants, obviously. Out in Deer Meadows, we have a pumping station supplied by GBRA. That water comes from GBRA. The problem is those pipes that come in are above ground, and so they weren't protected. So yeah, we need to reset those pipes back into the ground, or at least provide some shelter, whether it's a shed or whatever over the top of those. That would help prevent that. The city also probably ought to be thinking about, you know, four-wheel drive or something, because the workers that had to go out and service all those water pumps, it was obviously icy, slick. You know, is it a four-wheel drive? Does that help you? Well, it might be four-wheel skidding, but something that would help them out. There is little that can be done with the front gate. It gets its water from saws, and saws had an issue. Do we want to build redundancy to feed them? I'm not an engineer. Our engineer, Ron Emmons, quit before the storm. So, and we haven't replaced him yet. So, you know, that would be an engineering study that'd have to go out.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Next question is for Stephen. We hear a lot about accelerated growth in Fair Oaks and how it is already changing our community. What is your position on growth in Fair Oaks Ranch? And what do you plan to do on city council about the vision if elected?
Okay, so all the areas within our ETJ have a developer agreement. The biggest one right now, we've got a few major areas that haven't been solidified, but the biggest one now is a reserve, also known as Bernie Estates to some people. Controlling growth, you can't, outside of the developer agreement, you have a limited amount that you can actually tell somebody how to work on their property. The city's already annexed everything, whether that's good or bad. I kind of think we could have handled that a little bit better because we actually took away property rights from people. But by maintaining the developer agreement, maybe not giving in to the developer on certain things that they'd want, we can control growth. But I'm going to tell you, growth is happening, and it will happen. Just look to, down Ralph Fair Road at Cielo Ranch, but also look north, up highway on 46 and Ralph Fair Road, what will soon be George's Ranch, which is another Esperanza. So we're going to have a lot of people traveling up and down Ralph Fair Road. My idea is let's fix our infrastructure within the city first, and then And let's kind of hold the development off as much as we can while we negotiate with those developers to try to find a lower amount of housing that will be out there that will maintain our semi-rural type environment versus someplace to the other side, Cielo Ranch.
Thank you, Stephen. Michelle, same question. We hear a lot about accelerated growth in Fair Oaks and how it is already changing our community. What is your position on growth in Fair Oaks Ranch, and what do you plan to do on City Council about that vision if elected?
Sure. So first of all, we all know that none of us really want new development, but we also know that that's not the reality of the situation. So I say that I'm for controlled growth, and I think that we have to use the tools that we have in place, like the Unified Development Code, the Future Land Use Map. I also believe that we shouldn't allow variances if someone is coming in and they're going to build something that they're allowed to build by the law, basically what it's zoned. We shouldn't allow a variance unless it's to make it less dense. Some of my past experience in BK, we actually worked with some of the developers, and I was really surprised. A lot of times they want to be good stewards of the community as well. So we were able to work with them, and we got them to do things like give us park space and dedicate it to the city, or to Forha in our case, add hike and bike trails, or to install turning lanes going in and out of the development to help with traffic.
Thank you, Michelle. Back to you on this next question. Capital projects are regularly debated at City Council meetings. What is your position on expanding our civic buildings, and how do you define success for this type of capital spending?
So when you talk about capital projects, I mean, I really think that we have to listen to our residents and then listen to staff. And I would hope when any new project comes before us that we have data and kind of a business case to present on the project, and ask ourselves, is this a want or a need? And if it's a want, then maybe it's not something we do. If it's a need and it's not in our budget, we have to go back to the citizens and see what they think on the project.
Thank you. Stephen, same question. Capital projects are regularly debated at City Council meetings. What is your position on expanding our civic buildings, and how do you define success for this type of capital spending?
Okay, so we have different buildings, civic building. So if we're talking the civic center that was going to be built from the old police station, I've always been against that. We could never figure out who really wanted that building to host meetings. It would have been like 3,000 square feet. The building had asbestos. That should have been addressed years ago. That adds to the cost. Thankfully, that's been terminated. Now, City Hall. So another civic building. It's old, it's worn down. If you've ever walked through that building, it's dysfunctional. It doesn't need a manager, though, to have their own office and a big desk. In the military, we don't have that. We have Cubicle City. It's more efficient. You can squeeze more people in there. I've had, as a leader, I've had to actually work right next to my employees. I found no problem having a counseling session with them, either by taking them to a conference room or outside. You can do that very discreetly. It's not a problem. But for the city council building, yeah, that probably needs some upgrades. The police building, as I said, has got some safety deficiencies, like bulletproof glass, something that you might want to have. There is spending that should be done, but it is as Michelle said, it's a want versus a need. And the need is to fix the city council building or the city building where all the workers are, and the police building. The Civic Center, not so much.
Thank you very much. Michelle, back to you. Concerns about our infrastructure keeping pace with anticipated residential growth are regularly shared in City Council meetings. What is your position on infrastructure spending, particularly water treatment and availability, sewer capacity, and our roads?
So, I mean, we have to take care of our citizens in that need. We don't have a choice. Some of these facilities that we've had are going up on 30 years. Some of them have been haven't been maintained at all or barely maintained. I kind of compare it to like if you build a house, you don't just build a house and walk away from it for 30 years and not do any maintenance. So a lot of the stormwater drainage is not functioning as they're designed, and they've just got to be maintained. We've touched on wastewater with the drying beds that we have there we've outgrown those, and not to mention the smell. So Stephen even mentioned, I think it's called a screw press, where they could dry it out and haul it off. As far as the streets go, from my understanding with talking to staff, we have many streets that are past due when they need to be resurfaced. So these need to be top of council's mind in the future.
Thank you. Stephen, same question. Concerns about our infrastructure keeping pace with anticipated residential growth are regularly shared in city council meetings. What is your position on infrastructure spending, particularly water treatment and availability, sewer capacity, and our roads?
Okay, so I'll start with roads, because right out in front of my house, in between Centella and Mellow Winds, we've had cones and metal plates on the road for about 2 months. So speaking to that resident, until they put cones up, in the middle of the night, you'd hear cars going across those metal plates, and it would be the thump thump. Well, the dude's jumping out of his bed thinking somebody's beating his house down. That shouldn't happen. We should have planning. We identify what the issue is with the road or piping or whatever, and we develop a plan so that we go out and we say, okay, today we're going to dig it up. Then we're going to look at it. And then if we've got to put concrete in there or whatever, we immediately start making the citizen the priority. And that's the issue that the citizen is feeling and seeing. So 2 months in front of our house, feel free to come down Fair Parkway. No problem at all. There's several issues within the city with roads. Part of it was because city council didn't take action and was allowing semi trucks to come up and down our freeways, our highway, our Fair Oaks Parkway, in between Ralph Fair and the interstate to dump material over at the soil and whatever across the highway. That should have stopped a long time ago. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that our roads are not built for that kind of traffic. And I sit on my front porch every day and I watch it. So, but now, okay, wastewater, stormwater. Stormwater is an issue. There's 47 houses or areas that are on the stormwater thing. 5 houses are identified as having water in their house or in their garage, 4 of which are being taken care of either by, they've already done it, the homeowner has, or will be taken care of by the road and bridge. Stormwater, we need to fix at the general support area.
Which is flooding and stormwater drainage has been on the city's radar for a number of years. What is your position on these critical issues, and what do you plan to do to address them if elected?
Is that for me?
Yes, that's for you.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, so another issue with how we build things in this city. So there's a neighborhood that is just at the end of Windermere. And they built, another area. But somebody's got to realize that in a heavy rainstorm, that water is coming down Windermere like you're going to ski down a ski slope. And you're going to impact these houses that don't have a wall that actually goes down to the ground. So you can expect stormwater in those areas. That's just as simple as it can be. We made a mistake. The city made a mistake in how they graded that property. They could have made sure the developer built it up so that at least the water wouldn't be striking houses. So there's a lot of problems with stormwater, but I think that could be handled under the general tax fund and under a roads issue, not by giving a stormwater utility fee, which again, a fee is not a tax. You can't take that off on your taxes at the end of the year. And a fee will almost probably never go away. So I'm absolutely against that. But we need to put money into our infrastructure for our citizens that are here right now, whether that's new piping in the ground for better water pressure. That's something we should look at.
Thank you. Michelle, same question. Flooding and stormwater drainage has been on the city's radar for a number of years. What is your position on these critical issues, and what do you plan to do to address them if elected?
So the ditches in the streets that are public have been barely maintained or not maintained at all over the past 30 years. They're not functioning, and doesn't take, everybody, especially these past few weeks with all the rain, you can drive around and see where the problems are all throughout the city. So we first need to, I believe the master drainage maintenance program, by the way, identified like 40 different projects that need to be addressed. So we're going to have to come up with a budget to address these, because we've had a limited budget to address these in the past. So we need to be able to have the budget to be able to address the problems. There's also the issue of the privately owned drainage easements and stuff that need to be addressed.
Thank you very much. We're going to start with Michelle on this one, and this next question focuses on behavior. Generally, the way folks have acted in the past is a pretty good predictor of how they will act in the future. And as a member of the City Council, if elected, you will have the opportunity to work with a variety of people, issues, interests, and agendas. Would you please describe a personal experience with a challenging issue that you had to navigate, either successfully or unsuccessfully, from which you learned a major lesson?
So, yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of the animosity that's been going on. And the bottom line is for me, we all need to work in a positive manner, in order to move things along in the city. I'll go back to the example that I gave earlier today. I had the chance to work with some people when I was on the Bee Cave City Council that we didn't necessarily agree, but it just took a lot of us communicating, getting them involved in committees, and actually working together, not just talking, but getting on committees and working on those committees together in order to move the needle forward. And I always say, there's no matter how flat you make a coin, there's two sides, right? So listening to people, and just talking to people and bringing people together. And I was very successful at that in Bee Cave.
Thank you. Stephen, same question. Would you please describe a personal experience with a challenging issue that you had to navigate, either successfully or unsuccessfully, from which you learned a major lesson?
Sure. So the military medics, you've got Air Force, Army, Navy, and then you also have VA. The decision was made that we need to bring all those services onto one network, taking them off the Army network, the Navy network, the Air Force network, into one network controlled by one group of medical network engineers like myself. So first thing you got to do is you got to go and negotiate with all those services, because they don't want to lose you, and they've got some control on you. And so you have to basically go in there and talk about the benefits, the negatives, and the risks that all come around, and negotiate those positions to where they see your side of the point. They understand that they're not going to be at risk, that it's going to happen, this cutover is going to happen in the middle of the night, and they're going to be fully involved and aware of that situation. What that tells you how to do, what it tells you what to do is negotiate, see both sides of the coin, and be able to put the priority of your people where it needs to be, which is number one. Coming out of those meetings with the Army or the Air Force with a negative was not really an option for us. So, but you also didn't want to take their lane away from them. So it's making them feel like they've got to win, you've got to win, and we all come away happy.
Thank you very much. Michelle, this one's for you first. Our last two questions focus on you and your personal values. What is the best advice you ever received, and how have you incorporated that advice into your life?
I think the best advice I've ever received was from my dad. And that's just, don't take yourself too seriously, and try to always do the right thing. And so that's what I intend to do for the city of Fair Oaks. You know, I'm not always going to know every answer. I'm not always going to give you the answer that you want to hear. But I promise you that I will try to find the right answer, and I will try to do the right thing. And that is something that my dad instilled in me throughout my life.
Thank you very much. Stephen, same question. What is the best advice you ever received, and how have you incorporated that advice into your life?
Well, kind of like Michelle, mine came from my mother, since I lost my dad at an early age. But it's basically don't lie, don't steal, and don't treat other people negatively. Always try to see the best in people, and always try to work with people. Everybody's going to have differences, but you know, everybody, you know, comes from the same person. So, you know, my thing, that's how I try to live my life.
Thank you very much. This question starts with Stephen. Let's imagine for a moment that we are in a not so distant future, December 2025, and you're completing the term that you're elected to here in a few weeks. Describe what you would be most proud of during your service to the city of Fair Oaks Ranch, and include your personal next steps for leading our city through the next several years.
Well, one of the things that I would be most proud of is that, you know, the citizens are taken care of. If I could walk away and go, you know, we handled the roads, we did the wastewater treatment plant, we found a way for property tax freezes on our citizens and our disabled. If we spend our money wisely, you know, fixed all our infrastructure plans today, like speaking with Tobin, the city manager, during a heavy rain, they actually bring in more water into the wastewater treatment plant than normal because the pipes are cracked. The pipes are leaking in the ground. So that's not good. So if I was able to do that, keeping the citizen focused, then I'd be absolutely happy to hang out on boots. Going forward, trying to manage the growth within the city, making sure that we maintain that semi-rural environment while maintaining water quality the way it should be. And again, the roads as well, because, you know, with growth comes roads. They need to be maintained, and now we'll have more to maintain. So, I mean, that would be the next goal, is how do we plan for the next level of growth?
Thank you very much. Michelle, same question. Let's imagine for a moment that we are in the not so distant future, December 2025, and you're completing the term that you're elected to here in a few weeks. Describe what you would be most proud of during your service to the city of Fair Oaks Ranch, and include your personal next steps for leading our city through the next several years.
So I would be most proud of, I'm not too far off from what Stephen actually thinks, if we can get all of our infrastructure problems taken care of, and at least get those to a point where we've got them in a project plan and slated out, and so that we know we're going to, even if we don't get them all done in 3 years, we know when we're going to get those done. I would be most proud if I left here and I could still say that we've remained the third safest city in Texas, and that I, you know, helped in managing our growth by setting out those, or using those tools that have been set out before us so far to manage the growth with the future land use map, the comp plan, and the unified development code. And what was the second part of the question? I'm sorry.
Just what your next steps are, your personal next steps for leading our city through the next several years.
So it's really kind of the same answer. Is just trying to get that accomplished, right? Just trying to figure out how we get all these infrastructure projects through. How do we get them slated? How are we going to get them in the budget and get them paid for? And, you know, how can we work with developers when they come in here to make, and even though they're allowed by law to make, you know, things less dense, or get them to give something back to the community that they can use.
Thank you very much. At this time, we have time for 2 questions from the audience. If you have a question, please type that in the chat area at the lower middle part of your screen.
If not, I'll ask a question. If I don't know if it's easy.
We have a question, and I'm going to go to Stephen first. How do you perceive Ralph Fair Road should be widened with the median within city limits or 4 lanes with a turning lane?
Wow, that's a good question. I know it's already on the books by TxDOT. So unfortunately, it's going to have to be 4 lanes, and there's going to have to be turning lanes, and probably at Keeneland and Fair Oaks Parkway, there's going to have to be stoplights because if you're in the arbors and you want to go down to I-10, that is very, very, very difficult. So at least 4 lanes. Also along the road, we need to talk to TxDOT about putting in some noise filters, basically very large fences to prevent the noise from rattling our homeowners as they're trying to sleep. Because I don't know if you've been on this part of the parkway, but you can actually hear the road noise all the way up to my house, and that's a good half a mile. So at least 4 lanes, got to have turning lanes, and got to have stoplights.
Thank you. Michelle, same question. How do you perceive Ralph Fair Road should be widened with a median within city limits or 4 lanes with a turning lane?
Well, first of all, Ralph Fair is a state road. So I'm sure TxDOT has pretty strong opinions on what it should be. And one of the things that I did when I was in Bee Cave is form a committee and work with the Travis County Commissioner there to like do more road studies and do some things to add safety, be it a median like you just suggested, or more turning lanes and egress lanes, less curb cuts, red lights. So I think I'd have to do a little bit more research to determine which one would be the right solution, because there could be many solutions or many combination of solutions. But I think that's probably not a bad idea to try to form a similar type of committee to do some more broad road type studies.
Thank you very much. Michelle, we'll stay with you for this next question. What is your position on commercial development in Fair Oaks Ranch?
So when you say commercial, I think neighborhood commercial. So first of all, we have our future land use map. So we kind of know what our roadmap is for the city, right? So we know what areas we can have that neighborhood commercial or different types of commercial developments. So I'm okay as long as we're adhering to that future land use map and not allowing commercial in areas where we don't want it. Because if you look at the future land use map, it puts those types of businesses away from homes so that they're not a nuisance and right up against a neighborhood. The other positive to having stuff like I really like Parker's and the Spotted Deer, the coffee company, and little businesses like that. They bring in sales tax revenue. So I'm for stuff like that, but I'm for definitely sticking with what we have planned for our future land use map.
Thank you. Stephen, same question. What is your position on commercial development in Fair Oaks Ranch?
Well, so as Michelle said, the future land use map's already got that mapped out. You've got some commercial development within the city. The other areas within the ETJ are residential, whether or not that's the area just north of Setterfield or out in the reserves or over by Stone Creek Ranch. And then, of course, you've got the commercial development over by CVS, Frost Bank, and the Shell station, and just below that. So that's where the city has already developed or set aside for commercial development. And now, when you talk about maybe commercial development of the unfortunate apartments that are going on behind Elkhorn Ridge, or will be shortly, that's really a sad thing. It's outside of our ETJ. Don't like it because those people, bought those properties believing that field would be there forever. So that's an unfortunate thing that I wish that the city would have, I know that they knew about it, but maybe they would have communicated that better so it didn't come as a surprise. Because I know that When I discussed that with the city manager, he said that he and Roy, though I don't want to talk out of school, had been in a meeting where that might have been discussed with the city. Don't know if that's true or not, or if I misunderstood him. But I guess just meeting with our neighbors, San Antonio or whatever, to see what development might be coming our way in the out years. Again, not that you can stop it because that's part of the state code. So I guess the only thing you could do is at that point is communicate what's going to happen.
Thank you, Stephen. We're going to stay with you for this last question. What is your position on the proposed construction of the north side water tower?
Oh, well, I've been against that. As many of you know, I ran the last time for place number 6, and Chesley won. Congratulations, Chesley. I see you in chat. But I'm against it. We were told that that was a TCEQ requirement, but I read the 2017 findings, and it doesn't mention EST at all. We need to increase the pressure into the housing in those zones. Actually, Zone C exceeded the capacity more than Zone A. So if we were looking at a water tower, we'd put it in Zone C. We can add a hydrodynamic tank that would add capacity, that would meet the requirement, and it would cost about $400,000 versus $4 million. I also heard that the water tower would be used for fire control. Well, in Oakview, just a week or so ago, we had a garage fire. It took the fire department 11 minutes to get there. The National Fire Protection Association standard is having a 4-man crew on the fire within like 6 minutes, and we don't meet it, and we've never met it. Our response times average between 7 and 8 minutes on a good day. Might get a little bit better now that Leon Valley is, or Leon Springs is bringing their fire station a little bit closer to us, but they also have now more area to manage. So, you know, I'm against the EST. Another thing I'm against it for is it's not for semi-rural. If we put in a water tower and you want to build a $200 million home on 5 acres, do you want a water tower in your backyard? That's the problem that Stone Creek Ranch had. They said that they had put the water tower in, they give us money, they give us the land, blah, blah, blah. But there's 2 million dollar homes out there. So nobody wants a water tower in their backyard when you spend that kind of money. So control growth by, you know, using the less expensive option.
What is your position on the proposed construction of the north side water tower?
So I believe that we're currently almost at capacity and something needs to be done. I haven't served on the current council to know all the facts on it, honestly, but I believe after talking to the public works superintendent that something needs to be done. And I believe that for the city, we should go with the option that makes the most financial sense in the long run.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you answering the questions tonight. We are at the point of providing closing remarks. And I'm going to start with Stephen. Stephen, if you'd like to provide a couple minutes of closing remarks for us this evening.
Well, absolutely. You know, and I appreciate everybody from attending. I see we got 43 roughly participants, so that's pretty awesome for an election that's only got one council position up for grabs. So, you know, thanks so much for everybody that comes out. I hope that I provided, you know, my vision for this election. What I would do to support you, the citizens of Fair Oaks. We've got a great city, but we need to focus on our citizens and get our infrastructure healthy before taking on projects that cost a lot of money, a lot of tax dollars, but are not the priorities of the citizens. You know, we just need to look for alternatives that are, you know, for these projects that are less expensive, but provides the desired effects. The example is just what I was talking about with the capacity of basically we had reached above the 85% capacity range that's required by TCEQ. And we got some options out there for an elevated storage tank or hydrodynamic tanks. And there's a large cost differential. The problem is, you know, when we went out to these consultants, we told them what we wanted and they gave us the answer. We didn't tell them give us alternatives. So they came back thinking that this was a TCEQ requirement, of which it's not. And there are other alternatives that would be cheaper, faster, and less cumbersome. Whether or not for the wastewater tank, that's another question that we, do we build a new wastewater treatment plant at about 27 million bucks? Or is this devolute dewatering process going to help us? Also, we need to look at hiring an engineer that can perform some of the project management duties versus always going for an engineering firm that costs us hundreds of thousands of dollars. All you got to do is look back through the city council meetings. You'll see we're spending money left over right, and many on projects that are going to go south.
2 minutes to provide closing comments.
But I appreciate your vote. Go to voteformay.com. Thank you.
So hello again. Thanks Forha again for hosting. Thanks Stephen for attending. I appreciate your passion for the community, and especially thanks to all the citizens, because I know everybody has busy lives, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to listen in. As I stated earlier, I've got a lifelong passion and experience in serving my community. I want to bring the past experience to this community, and I believe that's going to make me immediately impactful in the council. I want to ensure that we have the beauty of this community, and that we maintain that, and that we take care of the safety of our citizens, and that we're managing our growth. And I'd appreciate your vote. I hope to bring a little bit more bliss to Fair Oaks Ranch, and you can find me again on Facebook, Michelle Bliss for Fair Oaks. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Before we close tonight, I would like to ask the candidates to send their contact information. So if you have a web page or a Facebook page, we might be able to post on the Forha website. Would really appreciate that, so that folks can reach out to you and ask any additional questions that they might have before the election. With that, thank you all very, very much for joining us. I really appreciate your engagement in the community. I'm sure I speak on behalf of both Teal and Judy that just really appreciate your time tonight. And thank you. You may find the link for this recording. Where, Judy? Are we going to have that posted?
I will post it on the website as well as on the Facebook page.
All right, so it'll be posted on the website and the Facebook page for you to view afterwards if you'd like to do that. Thanks again. Y'all have a great night. Be
Thanks,
safe.
everybody.